What is the biggest what if in UFC history? Well, a what if is basically if it wasn't to happen, how drastically would a fighter's career change, or how drastically would the UFC be different? So, for example, let's do number one. What if Masvidal never landed the knee? Now, this would be vital not only for the UFC, but also for Ben Askren and Masvidal's individual careers, because a lot of people think if Masvidal didn't land that knee, that Askren would have eventually won that fight by just wrestling him the whole time anyway. To be honest, I kind of agree. Masvidal's never really done well against wrestlers. He's got decent takedown defense, but to say that Ben Askren puts all his eggs into one basket, which is wrestling, I really do think he would have been able to wrestle Masvidal, especially when he's exposing his knees like that. I also think Masvidal wouldn't even be as big as a star. I mean, if you're going to lose to Ben Askren, he would not. This is the fight that made him the star he is. He wouldn't be a huge star. Even if he was to somehow win the fight, I don't think if he didn't. I think if he didn't land that knee, he would never be a big star. If Askren managed to win that, then Askren could have got a title shot. And imagine Askren versus Usman for the welterweight belt. That would have been crazy. But yeah, if this didn't happen, Masvidal, in my opinion, wouldn't have been a star, win or lose. And I actually think Askren would have won the fight. So this knee was kind of the most important thing. This knee has literally made Masvidal millions of dollars. Just the knee alone. Askren might have actually been in like a better UFC fight, because if you notice, after the Masvidal fight, he went on a bit of a losing streak and he got KO'd by Jake Paul. Maybe if this knee never landed, then maybe Askren would be in a better state and maybe he would have managed to beat Masvidal. A lot of people have that opinion that if Masvidal didn't land the knee, then Ben would have just wrestled him the entire fight. But yeah, that would have been crazy if Masvidal never landed the knee. And I'm glad he did, because then we got a huge star in Masvidal. And that makes it worth swapping Demetrius Johnson for Ben Askren. So in a way, I kind of agree with the decision, but that would have been crazy. Number two, what if Leon Edwards never landed the head kick? This would have been crazy. Obviously, UFC 278, Leon Edwards versus Usman 2. Usman was just another contender, like Masvidal, like Colby, like Gilbert Burns. He was just another contender, and he was losing the fight. It was down 3-1, I believe. Usman winning round 2, 3, and 4. Leon winning round 1. And it was looking like it was just going to be another boring win by Usman again. Leon Edwards landing this head kick has changed so much. It's made the welterweight division way more exciting. Usman's career has kind of gone on a downfall. Leon's become like a 10-20% better fighter. We've got another British champion. The welterweight division just got way more interesting. Usman's no longer the pound for pound GOAT. He's not even in pound for pound top 5, I don't think. So it's kind of crazy that this leg kick landed. If this leg kick never landed, I feel like Leon Edwards would kind of be forgotten, because he was never really a big name anyway in the welterweight division. He was just another contender who didn't really trash talk. Some people thought he was boring, so I think he would have just been another contender. Dana probably wouldn't have given him a title shot after like another 3 fights anyway. Usman would probably still be champ as well. His confidence would be an all-time high. His chin never got cracked. I mean, who else would have fought for the belt since then? Bilal Muhammad, Gilbert Burns, Colby again, I don't know, but I think Usman would still be champ. He'd probably still be pound for pound number 1, or at least number 2 or 3. Yeah, Leon Edwards' head kick saved his entire career, man. Saved his entire career. Without that leg kick, kind of like Masvidal, he wouldn't be as big as he was. And Usman, that leg kick kind of ruined his career. I keep saying leg kick. That head kick kind of ruined his career. If that head kick wouldn't have landed on him, Usman would most likely still be pound for pound champ, still be welterweight champ, and I'd probably be fighting like Bilal Muhammad or someone now. But that leg kick was crazy for Leon Edwards in his career. Then we move on. What if Yair Rodriguez didn't knock out the Korean Zombie? I don't think this is a huge what if, because first of all, Yair's not the champion and this wasn't a huge fight, but Yair would have been on a bit of a losing streak. He lost to Jeremy Stephens before this, and then he was losing this entire fight, by the way. He was losing the entire fight, and right at the end of the fight, he just lands an elbow and wins the fight by knockout. But Yair was on a 2-fight losing streak at this point, and to be honest, even if he was to lose to Korean Zombie, he probably wouldn't even have, I can't speak, probably wouldn't have even gotten a title shot yet. He'd probably be in like top 10 featherweights, fighting someone at the lower top 10. Volk probably would be fighting someone else right now, like Ilia Topuria or Arnold Allen or something. Josh Emmett maybe, because Yair Rodriguez probably won't be in the higher featherweight rankings, and Korean Zombie probably would have got a title shot quicker than him. I know Korean Zombie got a title shot at UFC, was it 273? So it's not like he hasn't fought Volk, but Korean Zombie would have got a title shot a lot sooner, that's for sure. But yeah, this elbow, it didn't make or break Yair like the head kick or the knee did, but it's definitely a vital part in his title shot and a vital part in his career. And it's just unfortunate for the Korean Zombie. He could have fought for the belt more in his prime. He could have been at the higher level, and Yair Rodriguez wouldn't be fighting top contenders anymore. Then we move on. What if McGregor never fought Khabib? This kind of would have been big in McGregor's career and bad in Khabib's career. I believe that if Khabib never fought McGregor, he would not be a star. Every casual person knows Khabib. He's kind of like a household name now. Like, you ask someone who doesn't watch UFC, they know who Khabib is. But I don't think people would if he didn't fight McGregor. It's kind of like, I feel like if you're an MMA fan, you'd acknowledge the fact that, he's a great fighter, one of the best, but I think if it wasn't for the McGregor fight, people wouldn't really know Khabib at all. That is the biggest fight of his career. It's the biggest fight in the UFC. If Khabib never fought McGregor, then I don't think he'd be as big as a star. Even if he started the 29-0 record, he would not be as a big star. And I think McGregor, at this point, he would have been on a winning streak. I believe before the Khabib fight, he fought Eddie Alvarez and beat Eddie Alvarez. And previous to that, he was on a bit of a winning streak as well. So he would have beaten Eddie Alvarez, not fought Khabib, and then he would have fought Donald Cerrone to get another win. And then I think his confidence would be all-time high. Khabib kind of shattered his confidence. I believe McGregor he'd be on a bit of a winning streak. I think his confidence would be higher. He'd love the game more. He would have settled back into MMA after the Mayweather fight. And Khabib would be a top star, but yeah, this fight is crazy. This is kind of the thing that broke McGregor's career and the thing that made Khabib's career. So if this fight never happened, it would have benefited McGregor and Khabib would no longer be a star. So it was a good fight for both of them. On the topic of Khabib, what if Tony Ferguson fought Khabib? Personally, I thought if this fight was to happen, Tony Ferguson would lose. I think Khabib would win. But this would have been. I mean, this got scheduled 5 times, so we all wanted to see this fight. This is like the one fight that we were robbed from. It got booked like 5 times. I think if this fight happened, Ferguson could have stopped Khabib. Imagine Tony Ferguson, because this was in his 12-fight win streak. This was peak Tony Ferguson. No one could beat him. And putting him against Khabib, Ferguson could have stopped Khabib, man. He actually could have stopped him. He could have. He would have had a good chance at stopping Khabib. He's a good contender. I think he'd have had more of a chance than McGregor, more of a chance than Ali Quinter. Maybe not as much as Dustin and Justin, but man, Tony Ferguson, imagine he stopped Khabib, and Khabib would probably be higher in the GOAT list. Personally, for me, Khabib's number 5. Maybe if he beat Tony Ferguson and he was 30-0 with another great fighter on his resume, maybe he'd be higher up in the GOAT conversation, but he didn't. So if this fight happened, it could have been good for both. Khabib, if he won, he'd probably be higher in the GOAT list, or at least his record would look way better. And if Tony won, I mean, he's just stopped one of the biggest names in UFC history, so it would have been huge. But yeah, this is a fight that we all wanted to see, and people really think that Tony could have won. I don't, but maybe it could have happened. And the last one, what if Brock Lesnar trained MMA his entire life? What if Lesnar trained MMA? I know he trained wrestling as a kid, but then he trained wrestling, kind of went to WWE, and then went from WWE into like UFC. Then he only had a couple of UFC fights. I believe if Brock Lesnar, instead of going WWE, if he learnt a bit of striking and he just trained MMA his whole life, he could have been one of the best of all time. I mean, look at what he did with just little wrestling experience. He managed to become heavyweight champion with little wrestling experience, little MMA experience. If he genuinely trained this seriously, he could have been one of the best of all time. He could have been the greatest MMA fighter of all time. He could have been scariest athlete. He could have been like the Mike Tyson of MMA if he trained it his whole life. Obviously, would it have been a smart decision? No. Being a huge WWE star, fame-wise and money-wise, is better than being a huge MMA star. But in terms of the MMA world, he probably would have been one of the best of all time. It's clear that he wasn't experienced enough when he fought in the UFC, and he wasn't, his striking wasn't good enough despite winning a belt. But I'm saying if he trained this his whole life, with the juice, with the steroids, with the wrestling, with the striking, if he genuinely trained it his whole life and took it seriously, just imagine the potential this guy has. This guy could have been one of the scariest fighters of all time. But that is my opinion. Do you agree with any of the what ifs? If you do, if you've got any more what ifs, please comment them below. Maybe you'll make part 2. But yeah, thank you.